here with us right now, we have Honorable Minister Franca Bernadine. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
Very well indeed, thank you.
Welcome to Daybreak.
I'm delighted to be on Daybreak.
All right.
Well, thank you for joining us for sure. How's 2012 started for you? How's the year going so far?
Well, I guess for all of us nationally, we've started with a bang, a bit of a bang. But in terms of school, in terms of what's happening, good. And you have to be prepared in life to brace for all events, you know, and to take it in stride and so on. And from the school's perspective, you know, we're on time, we're on stream, and seem to be proceeding.
Okay. On the other side of that question, how did 2011 end for you?
School-wise, well, I was grateful that there were no major incidents of any kind, nothing that we could not be on top of and control of. We accomplished a number of good goals, you know. It was quite a struggle, but at least we came to the point where we were satisfied that the major thrusts that we wanted to see happen were in fact in place, regrouping for the ones for 2012.
Okay. So are there any difficult... sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
oh,
yes,
okay. Any problems with all the schools open? Okay, no problems. Everything running on stream? Or?
You mean for 2012? As far as we can see, yes. We had one little incident of a flooding of one of the schools, and that's in the Monjanoo area.
Okay.
But Monjanoo Mariam. But apart from that, the education officers are all primed. Well, we're primed now, as we have been trying to do with them, to sort of keep an eye on the lay of the land, and that when the term begins, each area education officer would have surveyed the schools under their responsibility and said, well, okay, all's well as far as we could see. Nobody's dropped out, nobody is, you know, that sort of thing. Apart from the flooding, and maybe one or two little minor incidents, one with perhaps a cook who's rethinking her position. And
truly minor incidents.
Yes. So far. So we have to brace for that. You know?
That's good. That's good. Now there's a big change taking place this year. Switching from common entrance to the I'm not sure.
The continuous assessment.
That's correct. Continuous assessment.
Tell us about this change and what challenges you're facing. And
well, it's an important change, because what it really does is to offer opportunity to all children in Grenada who come through primary school to go into secondary school. And it's important because the whole theme in education globally is education for all. It's about empowering people across any nation, whether they're in prison, whether they have disabilities of any kind, whether in fact they have diverse interests. We as a developing nation cannot really afford to have people who didn't have an opportunity, you know, in education. And it's a worldwide thrust, and we're part of that. But more specifically, the concept of universal education, secondary education, is something that our educators have spoken of, as I look back in the records, for about 21 years. When we took the decision in 1990 that the country needed to offer secondary education to all its citizens. I'm smiling because 21 years later we're still debating, and we still have others who are not too sure, but understandably so. But it's the right step to take, and so we've tried to make that happen, because that was one of the commitments as well of this government when in fact they took power in 2008, that we would try to make certain developments in education happen, and that we have been trying to accommodate that. So it really offers opportunity to all. But as you could well understand, you have to prepare for this. You have to be well prepared, because I know a lot of people who hold the view, not a lot, it's a small percentage of people who hold the view that secondary school is only for a certain group of children, and that thinking has long gone out, you know. It is about placing in the school opportunities for all children, so that they are able to find whatever they need, wherever their skills are and talents are, they're able to find an opportunity to develop them and express them. So it has been, we've removed the common entrance because it is a barrier that screens, and further to that, it also is a bit I wouldn't want to say erratic. It was the best that we could have done at the time, but if you don't perform on the morning of the common entrance exam, even if, heaven forbid, you were a genius, and whatever happened, your mother died, as happened in certain circumstances, you were ill the morning and so on, that's it. You've missed the common entrance, missed the train, and then you'll have to find alternatives, you see? So it's that kind of barrier that we must gradually move to remove, and that is what this is about. Now, what we've replaced it with is what we call the continuous assessment. And it also has an exam at the end. It actually starts in grade 5 and through grade 6, and then at the end of the period of time, you must ascertain whether in fact the child has absorbed and, you know, what are areas of weakness. But it allows us to determine where the weaknesses are. It monitors the progress a lot closer, and this is something that should have been happening in our system quite some time back. It's not a new concept.
Right.
So that's the big move. Now, in order to transition us smoothly through this, of course, we had to go through a series of public relations, first of all, to sensitize the public. And we have been to all except the parish of St. David's. So we have a public forum coming up now for the parish of St. David's, and we want to run a second one in South St. George's. We've already had North St. George's and had a very good response. But it's important that people understand why we're doing this, what is happening with it, and so on. We also have had to, we put into place a task force of educators from within the community and also from the ministry, so that they could walk us through the process. You know, sometimes when you're going through a major change like that, you may not see or not highlight a particular area that may be giving problems in the community, or perhaps people don't understand this or whatever. And they've been very, very good. They meet on a regular basis, and they guide us through the process. So the team from the ministry works with the team from the community. And they're all prominent educators, some of them presently employed, some of them past, but a small team, a great little think tank. And they really have looked and said, well, have you thought of this or have you thought of that? We've dealt with the issue of placement, and they have sequenced how we should place students. We're trying to disrupt that as little as possible. Same team who placed last year and the years before placing, but this time it's not going to be on whether you pass a common entrance or not. It's going to be on other factors. And now at the moment, what we're dealing with is the number of seats at each secondary school available for children. So as luck would have it, you know, we're having an easy buy this year because we have more places than we have children in almost all of the parishes, except St. George's. So yeah, there's been a decline in the population there. It will rise again, but certainly for this year, for next year, and possibly for the year after, we should be okay. But thereafter, there's going to be an increase. So we need to look at that more closely. And with respect to the St. George's, well, we're looking at creating one of the primary schools into a secondary. We're in the final stages of looking. I don't want you to feel at this stage that we're speculating. We are, but I don't want to disclose the details because you must get, there's a protocol to follow.
Yes.
And so we're following that. And I will soon make an announcement in about 2 weeks' time, and we've sensitized all stakeholders and they're fully satisfied. But that particular school has about 130 students, and it's built for almost 600. So it's plenty of space. The classes are small, 7 and 8 students in a class. You know, so it really is greatly underutilized. That's where we're at.
How many students are we talking about that should be transitioning into senior school this year?
Right. Normally it's about just under 3,000, of which perhaps 2,000 get places, 2,200 get places, and usually 700 to 800 on an average. Last year we had a really low dip, and that was good. But on an average over the last couple of years is 700 to 800 children who do not get a seat at the second, not because they are not able to, but because we cannot accommodate them. Some are of lesser ability, but even then there are measures to address this, you know. This year we're looking at about 2,500, 2,600. Yeah, a little less than the normal amount.
All right. Now, you spoke about the response that you got from North St. George's. What about the other parishes? How have they reacted to this change?
Good. I think once people came in and heard what was happening, it was very heartening at the end of the public forum to hear, well, let's see what you're all doing now, and know where all you're going now, kind of thing, you know? Because I think parents, particularly of children who are not having an opportunity, are particularly pleased because there is now going to be a way to accommodate them in the school system. And really, there are important, as I say, adjustments that you have to make with that. two of which we've already put into place several years ago. One of them is the literacy teachers. Now, we have a literacy problem in Grenada, in that there's still children coming out of the system without the skills, you know, basic literacy skills which they need to have. In response to that, we have had 2 teams of teachers do full degrees in literacy. We have one group doing degrees in numeracy, which is the mathematical side, and they would soon be out to be placed. But what we were able to do is to place them into the secondary schools, so that, because the debate was, should the first cohort go into primary to grab those who are failing at that level, so we stem the problem before secondary, or how then do we deal with the large number of children within the secondaries who are still graduating? I'm going to say large relatively, you know, relatively large, who are graduating and don't have the skills. So the decision was to place them into the secondary schools. So we've deployed them there, and then now we had enough to deploy into the primary schools. Now, that means that if a child is not passing, and this I think is the biggest plea that we have to make out there, to spot early if a child is failing and raise the red flag. Once that red flag is raised, you can then involve the literacy teacher in planning a program and going back, ensuring that the child gets the basic skills. And these are important things. But I wanted to say here that this by no means was an easy struggle. I mean, it's tremendously challenging, because there are people who don't believe it should be done this way, and there are people who don't think that's the way, and you have to respect all views, but you must come up with certain basic decisions that must benefit all. So the literacy teachers are there, and then we have counselors for the behavioral issues. So often we find in school that the behavior of the child is because of the boredom. You know, that the child is not being occupied effectively, that he's not studying what he'd like to study, which may be music and drum sets and technical education, it may be sport and physical education, it may be performing arts. But we've always sort of forced them along a narrow band of 8 subjects, and if you can't make it in that, you know, you get left by the wayside. So we broadened into the technical education, and hopefully we at least have the basis of a number and variety of options, so that a principal receiving a child at Form 1, child maybe want to go into physical education, English language of course, you may want to do math, you may want to do 2 technical subjects, you may want to do art, music, performing arts, wherever the skill lies and the opportunity, and really make a difference so that that child could become employed, you know, and empowered.
This sounds good. Let me just ask you, tell us about the book program that you had on. How has it been from beginning up to this point?
The book program has been a good program and well received by the public. It has had its issues, like everything else will, you know, but I would say a good 90 to about 94% of the children are well serviced with the book program.
That's a huge percentage.
Yes, and well received by parents. Now we do an evaluation each year, twice a year. We do it in November and one in February. The one in February is coming up. But we were late with the November evaluation this year because all the staff were involved in the whole universal secondary education thrust, getting out there with the public fora, liaising with the schools, because we had to do a lot of training as well. Not that the teachers were not trained before, but CXE came in, and because we are one of the 3 or 4 islands pioneering the thrust, we don't have to pay for that from next year, the years after, but it's free for us this year. And they really worked with the teachers to make sure that the assessments were going well in each school, and they also met with parents, and so we were very involved in that process. So they're only now completing the evaluation. The good thing about it is that it is providing books for children that parents would normally have had to face the cost of. And in education, especially in developing countries like ours, you want to try to offer as much support in as many areas as possible so that people could avail themselves of empowering the minds of their children. Because again, in developing countries like ours, education is a way out of poverty. The facts presented by the World Bank in its report indicate that very, very clearly. There is a strong link there. And so I want to encourage every parent, in fact left to me, I would have some big billboards around the island reminding us every morning that every day you send your child out to school, you're taking one step closer to lifting you and your family out of poverty, to at least giving you that chance. So it's a support program that way. Now, in the first distribution, it went very well. We used a task force from the community, and once we ascertained the books were available from the publishers, we were able to bring them in and plan, just a planned, systematic process for its distribution. The books were all marked. We agreed on what we'd put in each of them, how we'd set up the whole process. Now, as you could well understand, making sure that people, one thing is to have a system, you know, but you have to make sure people follow the system.
Right.
So it is in training the persons now, even the education officers themselves, how to monitor this. And it requires every principal to be vigilant, to do what they're supposed to do, so to speak. The teacher responsible in each school for the book program to alert people on time when things are not happening and so on. Now, some schools have had it down pit-pat. It is a model to watch, and we've been able to follow it because they follow the systems. They notify us from early, what books are missing so that we can supplement and so on, and we're able to do. In others, well, you know, still pockets, principal didn't get around to. We had one situation of a secondary school as well, that in which the teacher said, "I'll distribution books one day, and who ain't get it, I busy doing other things, that's your business." So then the audit found that there were large numbers of books still on the shelves in that particular school. And when we investigated, it was that the teacher had not, in fact, allowed parents more than one day to come in. Now, that should have been picked up by the principal, and the teacher themselves needs to understand that's not how it operates at all. So you do have those, and therefore it contributes to people still not having the full quota of books. And then we had some issues as well with the final supplier, that things were slower and that his pay didn't come through earlier. Earlier suppliers were able to ensure that with or without the books came through. Notwithstanding, and I think that accounts for the 8% or so, where we've had difficulty, it's been well received by parents, and it's making a difference.
Fantastic.
So, I mean, just a quick thought from you. In the future, we would be talking about the new ebooks and discuss the possibility of, you know, just a license and each kid having an ebook, and you know, they pull it up and having it all there.
My friend, a dream.
Yeah.
And when I saw the first Kindle, I said, "Oh gosh, look at our situation solved right here." I mean, if each child had a Kindle, I mean, think of what it is. That's all you need to take to the school, you see. But I guess the painful reality begins to come in that it's not going to happen for some time. We've been trying through even to ensure that schools have an adequate supply of computers, and there's still primary schools without. So they have 3, 4 here and there, and it is a tremendous drive. The thing is, you also have to have a clear policy in place, and we need to move swiftly with the policies before we get left behind the rest of the world. IT is evolving, as you know, at such a tremendous rate that you have to keep up. You really are preparing children, as the CXC director put it, for jobs that don't yet exist. You have to be futuristic. You know, your degrees even are obsolete. Imagine that. In our days when we did our degree, your degree was good with its facts for another 10, 12 years at least, before you began to see, well, no, this is covered at an earlier stage and so on. Now, by the time you finish your degree, your first year is outdated. So, I mean, the rate at which technology has proceeded, and it is indeed to be hoped that we would arrive at the doorstep of just that. But in the meantime, the reality is that we got to get people educated. We got to get our children empowered. We got to get the nation moving. So it's a combination really in the interim, and looking for the resources to make that sort of wonderful dream happen, you know?
Very good, very good.
Very good stuff.
I want to change the subject just a little bit. With regards to the cadets, there's been a lot of talk about that recently, a lot of concerns about military training in youth, especially with respect to guns and so on. You know, tell us a little bit about that, your level of comfort, you know, what's your thoughts on
well, the cadets, like all groups, are very important in nurturing, training, disciplining young minds in any society. And I think we went through a phase when, in fact, even the Girl Guides had died down to a very small number. The Scouts, the one or two of the groups continued. certainly the cadets went through that slump, you know, when they were not there and were not part of it. I think it's a good program, no two ways about it. I think many thousands of Grenadian young men have come through the cadets and are holding responsible positions in Grenada and worldwide. Indeed, when I look at the data, there is nothing at all to tie training through cadets with violence in young people, or there's no relationship really data-wise, as there is, for example, with music. There's certain music types that produce aggressive behavior and aggressive displays, and there's data to support that. There's nothing at all in the records to indicate. And I mean, the cadets have been around since 1840. So it's not something new that's being introduced. I think it's excellent discipline in so many different ways. You know, you can't, it's like saying to me, there's an upside and a downside of everything. It's like saying to me, well, you can't bring the computers into schools, or you can't have the internet because the children may look up pornography on it. Well, you've got to find ways to deal with that.
Right.
Or for that matter, you can't overreact because you were properly beaten with a belt when you were a youngster. Every time you see a belt, you fall out, you know, and say, oh God, look at something bad coming. I mean, things have to be kept in perspective, you know, and the positives that emanate from such a program. Children must be taught about these things, and I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating. You look at the product of the sort of discipline that is emerging, and I thought it was very regrettable, really, to have such a strong set of negative sentiments expressed with no founding reason at all. But I think we dealt adequately with it, certainly in the Senate. I think both opposition as well as senators on the government side really dealt with the concerns of the one or two who in fact came through the cadets themselves and mentioned that it was a good thing, but they were concerned about that aspect. I don't see that as a cause for concern. You know, I think, you know, knowledge empowers people, and it must be kept in that perspective, and it's well controlled, you know.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask you a personal question. You know, clearly you're very passionate and enthusiastic about education. What drives you?
I have always had a passion for education. I love the classroom. I love the empowering of minds. My career really started the other way around. In other words, I was teaching at the university level and then came down to secondary and got my experiences now as life, moved on. But also too, I am very much a social person. I do love people, the truth is. I understand all the flaws in people, but I do love them anyway. And we all are. We are human beings, and we understand that about people. But development has always concerned me deeply. And I have always seen education as the cornerstone, the founding thing. You can't do anything without minds that are empowered. And so I was tremendously grateful for the opportunity to get in there and do some of the things that we've been talking about and grumbling on the sideline for years, you know. And so here was a chance really to come in and to make a difference. We knew what needed to be done. We've been quarreling about it for the last 15 years or 20 years and saying, you know, we're letting the system slip. This should happen, that should happen. And it's marvelous really to have a chance and an opportunity to just change a few fundamental things that would have, hopefully, a profound effect on how education proceeds in Grenada.
All right.
Very good, very good.
Very good stuff.
We want to thank you very, very much for coming in and sharing your time with us and your information. It was very, very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Pleasure. Good luck with your program, and I hope it continues to grow from strength to strength.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Honorable Minister of Education, Franca Bernardine.